Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin's holding at 107K, probably because Michael Saylor says BTC could unlock $100 trillion in value, and then he spent $500 million proving that he's not bluffing. Trump's big, beautiful bill might sneak in the first U.S. crypto laws because nothing says regulatory clarity quite like defunding green energy and selling national parks. And OG Bitcoiners are dumping their bags on Wall Street while corporate treasury bros scoop it all up like it's Black Friday for Satoshis. All that and much more on today's show. Let's go! Good morning, my Bitcoin maximalists, ETH exit liquidity providers, and everyone who calls their trading laws his tax strategy. I'm Hank Hudson, coming to you live from the tech capital of the United States, San Francisco, California. It's Monday, and as we start off the week, the markets are twitchy, influencers are hungover, and somewhere a DeFi protocol is quietly being exploited for 7 figures. Now, before we belly flop into this week's regulatory mud pit and pretend the Fed's pivot isn't already priced in, smash that like button like it's rugged your portfolio and follow RoxomTV and me at Hank at RoxomTV on every platform you check during fake Zoom meetings. Whether you're tuning in from a VC-funded co-working cult, a van in Wyoming with Starlink, or your mom's house with suspiciously good Wi-Fi, top off that Celsius, adjust your OpenAI API spend, and let's dig into whatever chaos the crypto gods tossed at us over the weekend. But before we do, let's first check out this morning's market rundown. Let's go. All right, wakey, it's Monday morning. Smell the eggs and bakey, and they smell like Bitcoin right now, sitting at just beneath 107K. We saw it pop up yesterday to around that 108, 108.5 mark, but we've prepped back down this Monday morning to right beneath 107K a coin. Ethereum still doing a whole lot of nothing, sub 2,500, still right around that $2,440 mark. Down about what's that? Victor? We're going through them quick. Yes, XRP sitting at 218, Cardano at 55.56, and Dogecoin at 16 and a half cents. In TradFi, we have the Dow Jones up about $1.37. NASDAQ sitting at 20,324. The S&P up about $13 this morning. MicroStrategy feeling the love. They're up almost $10, creeping near that $400 level. Will they be admitted to the S&P 500? We're waiting and watching. Coinbase is down $1.50. Tesla is down $1.50 this morning. Nvidia sitting tight at 157, and GameStop right beneath $24 a share. We're taking a quick break, but when we're back, we have Katie the Russian and much more in today's bull run coming up. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a sec.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Welcome back. It's time for this morning's bull run, and we got a lot to cover, so let's get into it. First up, Senate Republicans are facing a marathon session today in order to pass President Trump's ambitious tax and spending package, the big, beautiful bill. Now, over the weekend, the bill cleared its first procedural hurdle with a dramatic 51-49 vote that lasted almost 4 hours. The bill includes permanent extension of the 2017 tax cuts, no taxes on tips or overtime, $150 billion in defense and border funding, a $5 trillion debt ceiling increase, cuts to Medicaid and SNAP, a new $25 billion rural Medicaid fund for 2028 through 2032, a repeal of green energy tax credits, phase out of SALT deductions, a plan to sell off 1.2 million acres of federal land, and more. Great. Now, the Wall Street Journal reporter Richard Rubin breaks it all down for us in this clip right here. Let's take a peek.
This bill helps business owners. This bill helps taxpayers broadly. About 2% of taxpayers would get a tax increase if the tax cuts expire. So this extends those and adds some new tax cuts on top of it. If you really care a lot about border security and national defense, there's lots of money here that they're funding.
The goals in this bill are a safer America, a stronger America, and a more prosperous America.
In terms of who gets hurt, people who are on Medicaid, there's new Medicaid work requirements. There's going to be limits on some funding. There's people who are concerned about rural hospitals and their funding, nutrition assistance programs, what we call SNAP, that also has some cuts in here. And then obviously clean energy as well. Like if you're in the wind and solar energy industry or manufacturing components or those kinds of things, those industries are really taking a hit from this legislation. When the bill is at this slim a majority, everybody is a key vote. You've got moderates like Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins who are concerned about the bill. You've got two Republicans, Rand Paul and Tom Tillis, who are opposed to the bill.
That is an admission that they know they aren't controlling the deficit. They know that the ensuing years will add trillions more. That doesn't sound at all conservative to me, and that's why I'm a no.
You've got conservative Republicans, Ron Johnson, Rick Scott, and Mike Lee, who are want deeper spending cuts. So they're trying to find the right mix of policies that can get 50 votes out of the 53 Republicans. You get Vice President Vance to come break the tie, and then it will pass. And so finding that balance has really taken them a while to do.
Lawmakers battle this out. Crypto traders are more interested on what's hiding behind the bill. More specifically, the Genius Act, which already passed the Senate and is now heading to the House. And lawmakers are preparing to merge it with the Clarity Act. The combo could finally deliver a unified U.S. regulatory framework for crypto. In fact, Tom Emmer, a key House leader, said that the Genius Act will likely only pass if it gets paired with the Clarity Act. That means the two are now politically married, and the outcome could change the game for digital assets here in the US of A. Now, if passed, this could reduce legal uncertainty, invite institutional capital, and potentially kick off the next wave of adoption. Assuming it doesn't get killed in a conference committee by the same people still trying to regulate crypto like it's Venmo for nerds, of course. All right, so we got quite the treat for you today. We have a special guest joining us. They're going to be going over a story with us, and we're going to go into some deep dive into her very interesting background. So our guest today is an absolute force of nature in the Bitcoin world. She's a former professional sailor turned freedom maxi who's helping people sail away from oppressive tax regimes and into jurisdictional sovereignty. She's the founder of Plan B Passport, now part of Citizen X, and she's been featured everywhere from CNBC to Fox Business to Bitcoin Magazine, and now she's here with us on the Blockchain Report. She's made a career out of telling governments thanks but no thanks and giving Bitcoiners the blueprint for global freedom. Please give a big blockchain, unstoppable, sovereign welcome to the one and only Katie, the Russian Katie. Everyone's really excited to have you here. How are you this morning? It's great to have you on the show.
Hi, Hank. Good to be here. Thank you for this introduction. Yeah, excited to dive into what's been happening in geopolitics in the world, and give you my perspective on why Bitcoin is becoming this big theme in the politics.
Well, we can't wait to hear more about that. But before we do, I want to familiarize our audience a little bit with you if they haven't had the chance to meet you before. I mean, you've had a really interesting background, Katie. You've gone from elite sailing to founding a company that helps Bitcoiners gain freedom through second passports. Can you just walk us through that journey for a second? Like, what drew you to this mission and this path?
Absolutely. I honestly think I was born to be a Bitcoiner. I was born to be a freedom maximalist. I was born and raised in Russia. So things like hyperinflation, things like weak passports were not a surprise for me. I was raised through these weird experiences of my money losing half of its value overnight. And I was living through experiences of constantly getting rejected in certain visas, even though I was traveling on a Russian national team for competitions around the world. So all this experience turned me into this person that is on the overlap of freedom money and freedom of movement. And that's what I've been helping Bitcoiners all over the world to obtain a second passport, second residency, to hedge against geopolitical instability and get them a second passport.
Amazing. And born to be a Bitcoiner. Do you have a shirt with that somewhere? Because I feel like we need to start making those if they haven't already. I'll split the proceeds with you. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Born to be a Bitcoiner. Okay, so Katie, we got a story that we're going to want to talk about with you in just a sec. So hang tight. We're going to go over it, and we're bringing you right back, and we're going to dive in. All right?
Sounds good.
Okay, so at a White House press conference on Friday, President Donald Trump called Bitcoin amazing from the escalator. He said Bitcoin is creating jobs. He said more people are using it for payments. And then he dropped this little gem saying it takes a lot of the pressure off the dollar. It's a great thing for our country. Well, that's a bigger statement than it looks, friends. According to the digital asset researcher Anders, Trump might actually understand the Triffin dilemma. Now, that's the paradox where the U.S. needs global demand for the dollar, but that demand makes exports more expensive and widens the trade deficit. Trump seems to be suggesting that using Bitcoin or even XRP could relieve that pressure. By shifting investment flows from USD to BTC, you reduce demand for the dollar, which softens it and helps rebalance trade. Or in other words, Bitcoin becomes a release valve for America's bloated reserve currency status. Now, this wasn't Trump's first pro-crypto moment, as we know, but it was the clearest sign yet that he's now viewing Bitcoin as a strategic asset and not just as a meme stock for libertarians. And with crypto markets already thirsty for any kind of bullish narrative, this one could catch fire quite quickly. The guy that once said that he didn't like Bitcoin because it competes with the dollar now says it might actually save the dollar. Now, if that's not a narrative pivot, then I don't think anything is. We're bringing Katie back. Katie, Trump just called Bitcoin amazing and said it relieves pressure on the dollar. Do you think he finally understands the Triffin dilemma, or did someone just slip him a Michael Saylor tweet before the presser?
I honestly think President Trump had absolutely no choice. We have this two superpowers. We have this unstoppable force that is Bitcoin, and we have this unmovable object that is U.S. government. And I think the unstoppable force here is kind of winning. Basically, he's at the position where he realizes there's nothing he can do about stopping Bitcoin, and embracing it is the best next scenario that he can take. Well, there is this book called Sovereign Individual that is the book that I recommend to absolutely everyone to read. And what they talk about is a game theory playing out in front of our eyes. And that's what's happening currently in the world. The nation states race for stacking Bitcoin has started. Now, we already see all the institutions coming in and buying Bitcoin, right? We see MicroStrategy issuing shares to buy Bitcoin. We see other public companies do the same to buy Bitcoin. Well, the nation states need to start stacking. And with the current deficit in the budget, what is their way to start stacking Bitcoin? Well, way number one is say, hey, we embrace Bitcoin. All you citizens, go spend your money and buy Bitcoin. That will already increase the Bitcoin per capita here in the US. They can also start being not hostile to businesses with the Big Beautiful Act is what they're trying to do. They want to say, well, banks are now welcome to start buying Bitcoin. Again, they're trying to raise this Bitcoin per capita. And we already see this nation state race playing out in other jurisdictions. El Salvador is obviously leading the way. Well, just like companies issue shares to buy Bitcoin, what is the one asset that the nation state can issue that won't devalue their own currency, or if they don't have access to money printer? Well, it's a citizenship. And that's what we're currently seeing with the Trump card, right? They're saying, hey, contribute 5 million investment into our economy, and you're welcome to come here. And El Salvador is doing the same. They're selling their citizenship for $1 million paid in Bitcoin. So this is the way of nation states stacking Bitcoin. And I think President Trump just did not have a choice but to embrace it, to support it, and to say, hey, all your citizens start buying Bitcoin. If we want to keep being the powerful nation we are, we need to get on this race and we need to win this race.
Yeah, and Katie, you've helped clients escape weak currencies around the world. Is the US dollar starting to give off some of that same kind of energy right now?
Well, it has been for a while, of course, and that's why we all became Bitcoiners, because we were sitting on this melting iceberg that keeps going underwater with the unreasonable spending and money printer. And of course, there are more reasons for people to get a second passport other than devaluing currency, right? There is geopolitical instability that is currently taking over the world, with the World War III being on the news all week last week. People just want to make sure they have this plan B in place. And now that we have this borderless money where at any point shit hits the fan, you pick up your stack and you go elsewhere. Well, what else do you need? You need the mobility instrument, and that is residency and citizenship. So people hedge against the currency going down with Bitcoin. They hedge against geopolitical or civil unrest with second passports. And that's the sovereign individual mindset. That's what I think brings back the power to the individual.
Yeah, and Katie, Trump went from calling Bitcoin initially a threat to saying now that it might save the dollar. What do you think changed his mind? Was it polling, data, donor pressure, or was he just his hand kind of forced, as you mentioned previously?
I mean, I'm sure there is some donor pressures that is happening. He's seen the insane amount of support he received after attending the Bitcoin conference last year in Nashville, attending libertarian conferences. Also, we all know that JD Vance has been a Bitcoiner for years. So maybe he was whispering the right things in the ear of the president. But also, again, the geopolitical instability is not currently playing out well for the US, for the US dollar too. So having a reserve currency that is not relying on our money printer machine stopping, that would be really nice. Having like the US government at this point also need this plan B, and that is Bitcoin.
Yeah, and let's say that the US actually starts treating Bitcoin as a release valve for dollar dominance. How would that shift your advice to clients thinking about capital preservation and relocation?
My biggest concern about US government fully embracing Bitcoin is that at some point they'll say, look, in our budget, we know, like in our treasury now, we have certain amount of Bitcoin. And look, we are really good at securing this Bitcoin. We are holding it really well. We have not lost a single sat. Well, how about we start custodying all your Bitcoin? And that would be another 6102, just like they did with gold. And they said that self-custody is no longer accepted in the country. They'll come out and say, hey, we'll custody your Bitcoin for you. You will have IOUs. You will have paper Bitcoin, just like you do with US dollars. Just last week, I was trying to Zelle somebody from my bank where I hold my money, and I have limitations on it because capital control. I'm apparently not allowed to spend my own money. Well, with Bitcoin, radical ownership is one of the most important things that Bitcoin brought to us. So giving up custody is an absolutely not even a scenario that I can absolutely consider. So hedging against 6102 for US citizens is important. And that's one of the reasons my client gets second passport, because they understand that today the president is not hostile to Bitcoin, actually pro-Bitcoin, but that also means that they might require custody of the government.
Sure. And Katie, you have a specifically well-rounded knowledge of this. I mean, you've lived through currency collapses yourself. Do you buy that, or buy this idea that Bitcoin could actually strengthen the US economy by weakening the dollar's global dominance?
No, I don't see how Bitcoin will help US dollars, honestly. There is a reason we built this parallel system that is outside of any government control. It could be, basically, it will soften the collapse of US dollars because there will be a better system already in place that can replace the global economic system that we use right now. But I don't see how it could help US dollars in the long run.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you, but we'll see how this all plays out in the meantime. If Trump really sees Bitcoin as a tool for rebalancing trade, could this be the first step forward, you think, in a full-on Bitcoin standard, or is that still tinfoil hat territory at this point?
Yeah, currently I don't see how President Trump embracing Bitcoin really supports Bitcoin adoption in a way that I see that happening. So I want, again, self-custody, adoption on an individual level. Of course, it will help public companies go ahead and, embrace the Bitcoin treasury kind of thing. But my way of Bitcoin hyper Bitcoinization is on an individual level, and that's what I want to see. I don't truly care about governments embracing it as much because again, it's a borderless system that is outside of any government control, and it's important to keep it this way. So their hands are tied. They have to embrace Bitcoin because there's nothing they can do. But on an individual level, we should always remember why we Bitcoin. And we Bitcoin because self-custody, because of limited supply, and all these important features of Bitcoin. And that's how we should keep it.
I agree entirely. So, Katie, we got a lot to talk about with you. We're going to do our deep dive in just a minute where we go into you, your background, all the cool things you're doing. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break here first. But everyone at home, stay tuned. We got more with Katie the Russian in just a sec. Thanks. All right, we're back with more with Katie the Russian joining us for our deep dive today. Katie, I want to get into your background a little bit about all the cool things you're doing, and I want to start from the beginning. We mentioned earlier that you went from racing sailboats for Russia to building a business helping people legally dodge taxes. What was the exact moment that you decided to turn your life into a James Bond subplot? We all are dying to know.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was born and raised in Russia. I was on a national team, sailing for Russian national team. And I was also studying economics and finance in like the Ivy League University of Russia, only that to realize that 2 years in, half of what I was studying didn't make any sense to me. And the reason I noticed it because I was in Spain for a World Cup for a month and a half, and I had certain amount of Russian rubles on me provided by the Russian government to spend to pay for my food, to pay for my living, etc. for the World Cup. And then overnight, the Crimea crisis started, and the Russian ruble lost like 40% of its value in a matter of less than a week. And I was like, okay, what is happening and how am I supposed to make it through this month now that I have so much less euros? Well, I came back to my university and I was like, okay, make it make sense. Show me the macroeconomics, math that make it happen, that makes sense here. And nobody could give me a solid answer. So I started digging deeper. I started to realize that half of the education that I'm getting in the university makes no sense, because part of the reason is we're studying by Western books, and I'm in Eastern European, well, not even European, partially country. So I just honestly got disappointed in the education system and just quit my university in no time and decided to look for other opportunities. Well, I realized that as a professional sailor, I could probably get a full scholarship in the US. At the time, I did not speak English whatsoever, not a word, but I was like, sure, I'll learn the language. So I came to the US for the language school for 1 month. And then, honestly, I just realized that I don't want to go back to university. I still do not believe in the traditional education system, but I could go through immigration based on my results because I was in the top 20 world ranking at the time. And apparently, America wanted me to compete for the country. So I went through immigration process based on EB1 program, people with extraordinary abilities. And my immigration attorney scammed me. She got paid and she ghosted me. So I had to self-represent my immigration case. And that was probably one of the turning points that made me realize that I'm actually pretty good at it. And I know how immigration works. So just living through this experience gave me some confidence. And in my first year in the US, I've already became a Bitcoiner. Again, I was just prompted to be a Bitcoiner through my life experiences. You know, there's this movie, Slumdog Millionaire, where this guy just lived through all the experiences to know every answer to Who Wants to Be Millionaire. Well, in a sense, I lived through all these experiences that made me a Bitcoiner. It was only a matter of time until I learned enough to actually get there. Well, I was a Bitcoiner. I started talking to everybody on Twitter that everyone needs a second passport. I lived through that. I knew that sometimes being an immigrant in the US gives me more power and more freedom. Like I could open a bank account without social security number. As a US citizen, go ahead and try doing this. You're probably going to fail. So I just started to look into this game of jurisdictional arbitrage, going deep down the rabbit hole. And over time, I gained expertise. I gained some audience on Twitter. People started asking me more questions, and I realized that it's time to bring the product to the Bitcoin space. So over 6.5 years now, over 6.5 years ago, I started Plan B Passport that just 3 months ago got acquired by CitizenX. So now we're part of citizenx.com, and we are productizing citizenship. Basically, I see citizenship and a passport as a product that you can truly acquire. And that makes this a free market competition between nation states because now you can just pick and choose with your money which citizenship you want, which jurisdiction you're part of. And that free market forces normal free market features onto nation states, which are the price race to the bottom and the quality race to the top. So now that we citizens are the customers and we dictate to them as we pick and choose the new citizenship provider, we're finally in a position to force them to compete for us and be better, provide us with better tax regime and provide us with better government services. So that's how I see sovereign individual thesis come into play by us forcing this free market competition. Bitcoin is a huge part of it because now, again, there's this borderless money. But my goal is here to help this free market competition evolve for Bitcoiners.
What a wild story. My goodness. When did you actually first come across Bitcoin? Was this when you were still back in Russia, or was it not until your journey to the United States where you were officially orange-pilled?
Now looking back, I realized that there were some people mentioning Bitcoin in my university, but I just never listened, never looked into that. But then I moved to the US and I started learning the language. And at the time, the distribution of information was definitely mostly in English. So me learning the language definitely sped up the process of me becoming a Bitcoiner, simply because there's just so much good information. I mean, you and I speaking, the blockchain report is in English, bringing information to people, all the articles. My first book was Mastering Bitcoin. And it was a very technical book at the time, and my English was very bad. But I was so obsessed with the idea of freedom money that I went through this book, got through it, and it clicked. And then, of course, Saifedean's Bitcoin Standard was just probably the mind blow for many of us. It just made it so clear of why we Bitcoin.
Wow, crazy stuff. Really interesting journey you've had. And I would love for you to go in a little, and also I want to say congratulations on the acquisition. That's very exciting. I would love for you to break it down for us a little bit more. What exactly do you do and CitizenX do right now? How do you help people use second passports to protect their wealth? Give it to us in layman's terms for those of us that aren't as internationally informed as you are.
Yeah, let me actually go back a little bit and explain this concept of flag theory. My definition of flag theory is a way of limiting your dependency on any one particular state by obtaining second, third flag, right? Stacking flags, stacking sats, stacking flags. When I say flags, what do I mean? I mean residency, citizenship. Bitcoin is another flag in a cyberspace, maybe a bug out home, maybe an offshore bank account. All these instruments are part of the flag theory toolbox. Well, I'm helping Bitcoiners to obtain second residency and second citizenship for their benefit. Now, there are multiple ways in which you can obtain a second citizenship. One of the interesting things for US citizens is many of them have European ancestors, right? So some jurisdictions in Europe will allow you to claim your birthright citizenship for your nationality of your grandmother or great-grandmother. So you can go through your lineage, through your ancestral lineage, and see if you qualify for one of the European citizenship. Now, Europe may not be the place where you want to relocate right now, but just having this strong second passport is already pretty helpful in your flag theory journey. The part of the business that we are the most bullish on, and that's honestly the core of our business, is citizenship by investment. There is a handful of countries that allow you to get their citizenship simply on investment or donation contribution to the country. El Salvador would be the leader of this right now, right? They have this digital native, Bitcoin native program where you go through 2 months of due diligence, you go through thorough background check, your police clearance certificate, some AML strategies, and then you contribute $1 million to the country. And on this basis, you are now eligible for a citizenship of El Salvador. We also have 5 Caribbean islands, St. Kitts, Antigua and Barbuda, etc. You can see some of this on the screen. These countries have been on the market for selling citizenship for a while. Basically, $250,000 contribution, get your entire family a second passport in a jurisdiction that is not geopolitically involved in any of the BS that is happening. It's an offshore corporation, it's an offshore jurisdiction that allows you pretty solid asset protection strategies as well. So they just made this citizenship as a product. And again, it takes about a year, but you're obtaining a full-on passport, a citizenship of a sovereign country, a sovereign nation that provides you with a very solid hedge against your home country government. We also can talk about countries like Turkey. Portugal has a rather longer path to citizenship through investment. They allow you to invest in the local economy. 5 years later, you're eligible to apply for citizenship, although they're changing some policies right now. But this is basically what we're working with. You contribute to the country appreciates the contribution and provides you with citizenship. It's truly a pay-to-play free market for citizenship.
And now the United States and Donald Trump has this enabled for us. And it's like $5 million. Is that correct?
Yeah, I actually totally predicted Trump Card like 2-3 weeks before they announced before the very first announcement of Trump Card. I came out with a tweet saying that EB-5 program, which is the current investment-based program for U.S. immigration, will be shut down because it has proven to be full of fraud. Like for the last 20 years, every administration has tried to fight the fraud in EB-5 program and just weren't able to do that. And instead, I said they will come out with a straight path to citizenship, which Trump Card is basically it. They provide you with this Trump Card, which is very similar to a green card, that allows you to apply for naturalization right away. The contribution is $5 million, which I also predicted in my tweet, precisely said it would be a $5 million contribution. Well, now we've been registering our interest through one of the website. I think it's trumpcard.gov, something like this. So far, there has not been official information on how to apply for this Trump card. But yeah, I definitely registered my interest. I want to be the first one to bring it to Bitcoiners because it's an interesting way of doing things. And for me, the most important thing is America creating the precedent of being okay with citizenship by investment, like contribution exchanged for citizenship or a permanent residency. I want the world to recognize that this is okay. We should welcome capital of other citizens wanting to be here. Of course, there will still be a thorough due diligence, some background check, etc., just like in every immigration process in the US. But I want this to be okay. Bring us the money, get the citizenship. This is a true value exchange, and that's okay.
What countries right now are the most popular for your clients, and what do you feel makes those destinations stand out?
Well, Caribbean islands are still leading the way simply because they have been around for so long. They established the name of being a citizenship by investment countries that are welcoming investors from all over the world. Turkey has become an interesting program because you basically just purchase real estate, and on this basis, you obtain citizenship. El Salvador is top choice within Bitcoiners, and we anticipate Argentina launch their new program, hopefully in the next 30 days, but we'll see. And that's what I'm really excited about. And
you say that you help clients opt out of broken systems. What does that really mean in practical terms? Are we talking lower taxes, more privacy, better beach cocktails? Like, what does that actually mean to you?
So I always say that flag theory is a security model. And just like with every security model, it has to be customized, right? Every Bitcoiner looks into the attack vectors and threats they have on their Bitcoin. Sometimes it's a family member coming over you after your wealth. Sometimes it's a three-letter agency, and sometimes it's the person that is sitting between computer and a chair. So depending on all that, you will optimize your security model. Same goes for flag theory. Depending on your home country nationality, on your family composition, on the desired lifestyle, we will customize on what are your goals, needs, and how we can achieve that. For Americans, getting a second passport doesn't really change their tax regime because there is such a thing as citizenship-based taxation. Well, for Canadian, things are very different. They can actually opt out of Canadian tax regime and become a non-tax resident of Canada quite easy compared to the US citizens and fully take advantage of tax haven jurisdictions that have zero capital gains tax, zero global income tax, zero dividends tax, all this beautiful economic freedom. And, you know, it's almost magical how over the last 250 years we've been following Adam Smith's work and realizing that economic freedom does in fact lead to economic prosperity. And I think, again, this jurisdictional arbitrage, forcing this free market onto nation states will just accelerate. And we will see, we actually see it in El Salvador and Argentina right now. The new presidents came in and said, we are pro-economic freedom. We're going to lower taxes. We're going to incentivize businesses to come here. And you can already see that El Salvador is attracting so much tech giants. Tether, Google, NVIDIA came in and just started populating El Salvador with their headquarters. And we are seeing this in Argentina right now as well, because they said, look, businesses are welcome. Revolut just announced that they're coming to Argentina. It's almost like once you lower the taxes, once you create these policies that incentivize businesses, people come and build a better future for the country. So I want more jurisdictions to realize that they're sovereign nations. All they have to do is attract citizens, attract businesses, and they should also launch citizenship by investment programs, and I'll help them with that.
And as you help your clients find these areas of more economic freedoms, as you call them, how do you deal with what I assume to be a lot of legal gray zones? You're working with all these different countries and regulations. Like, how do you navigate all that stuff? It seems overwhelming.
Well, it definitely is, but years of experience and international legal support, that's what we provide. We provide our expertise. That's the value we bring to our customers. We are the most white glove service there is. We hold their hand through the entire case preparation, helping them obtain all the FBI reports, any of the police clearance certificates that are necessary, lead them through providing the AML case to make sure that the country that they're applying to, seeing their assets, seeing their wealth as a legitimate source of income, proof of income. We were also the first company that educated Caribbean islands to allow Bitcoin being the source of funds and proof of funds, because they're government bureaucrats that have no idea what Bitcoin is and how it works. So like signing the message on the blockchain meant absolutely nothing for them when we came in, and we had to educate the islands and help Bitcoiners to legitimize their Bitcoin purchases, Bitcoin capital gains, and show that this source of income, source of funds is okay for citizenship programs. So we help clients through entire case preparation, submit their case, navigate all the government questions, explain to them what is necessary, and then get them through the entire process all the way until they get the passport.
And how many countries right now do your services actually lend themselves to? How many countries are at my disposal if I wanted to get a second passport? Are available
19. So right now, it's the highest number that has ever been. It's 19 countries that providing a citizenship by investment or citizenship by contribution path. I want it to be in hundreds. Like I truly want the number to go up because again, I want this free market competition. So part of this acquisition, Plan B Passport being acquired by CitizenX, is to truly join forces and help those smaller sovereign nation states to realize the power that they have of issuing citizenship through launching citizenship by investment programs. And that's what we're doing with Citizen X now. We are approaching those smaller sovereign nation states, helping them create the policy that will benefit them, although not messing up with their geopolitical stance, not messing up with their visa-free treaties and other treaties that they made with countries around the world. Because yes, as a sovereign nation, you issue a citizenship, which also comes with visa-free access to around the world. It's a travel document that can get you to many other places. So it's not only that the sovereign nation needs to be okay with that, it's all the treaties that need to be satisfied in that. So it's a process to navigate, but I'm pretty bullish.
And with, you said 19 countries currently, the United States is now jumping into the mix. Do you feel like we're going to see a lot more countries also make themselves available to this type of thing going forward as well? I mean, it's at 19 now. Was it 5 or 10 years ago? Has this number been slowly increasing, or what's that trend been like?
It's pretty slowly increasing. Like in my New Year predictions, I mentioned that 2 Latin American countries will launch this citizenship by investment program in 2025, plus potentially one more Balkan country. And like having 3 new programs this year would be amazing. So that's what I'm talking about with like slow adoption. If we're starting to get to higher numbers, that would be pretty awesome.
Do you think the U.S. doing this could be a catalyst for more countries to jump on this bandwagon going forward, kind of in a similar way where people are like, well, if the United States starts actively acquiring Bitcoin, it's going to be a domino effect for other countries in the future? Could this kind of undergo a similar process, you think?
Definitely. Right now, what we're seeing is a lot of pressure from the EU. And it's funny for me how much power EU thinks they hold, considering their absolute disaster in the economical and like they're done economically. They're not in good position.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the true power. Like money is the power. And considering the black hole they got themselves into with socialistic policies, I don't think they will hold that much power for much longer. So the US coming out and saying, we are okay with citizenship by investment programs will give green light to a lot of smaller sovereign nations. And that's why I was really excited about Trump card, just because it creates the precedent. And yeah, Argentina is doing it. Another pretty strong Latin American country that is doing this huge turn from socialism agenda to Malay taking over and providing economic freedom to citizens. So I hope that this will be like this a beautiful turn for the entire industry, because things have been getting gloomy with EU pressure on other countries, Malta shutting down their program because of EU ruling. So yeah, I definitely see it as a good precedent.
What kind of clients do you typically work with for something like this? Are these usually Bitcoiners, or do you also get no-coiner normies who want to escape hatch too?
I mean, at this point, definitely lots of no coiners or pre-coiners, I'd say, because they're already highly libertarian and they may not be fully sold on Bitcoin just yet, but they're almost there. But a lot of my clients are Bitcoiners simply because I build the audience on Twitter through like Bitcoiners are the people whose language I speak, and there's no other provider that can satisfy their needs as much as I do. So I try to like, this is where I can bring the most value. So that's the clientele that I want to work with. I understand their goals, needs, and their issues more than anybody. So yeah, I truly try to focus on Bitcoiners.
Well, you must really understand their needs well, because correct me if I'm wrong, you built your business almost entirely off of Twitter. So it begs the question, how did you do that without a huge ad spend or traditional marketing?
That's honestly a question for me that I'll study probably when I get older, but I just knew the audience really well. I knew their goals and needs, and I was precisely delivering the product that they needed. uh, through the channels that they're using. And I was basically the only person on Twitter who was talking about second passports at the time. So Bitcoiners, being the strong community we are, just helped my business grow because they appreciated the content.
And kind of similar to Bitcoin itself, I feel like there could be some misconceptions about what it is you actually do. There's only 19 countries right now that provide this service. So I wonder, during your journey of building this business, did you ever get any people thinking like, this is too good to be true, which might lead them to believe like, hey, this seems sketchy or illegal when it's very, very much not so?
Yeah, whenever I say, hey, I'm Katie and I sell passports, people just expect that I'm just going to open my coat and pick up some passports for cash. But in reality, yeah, those are government issued citizenships, and there is a there is a Citizenship Act in almost every one of these countries that has been developed over years that is clearly stating how this program works, what kind of contribution they expect. In some of these jurisdictions, we're talking into a very precise investment, like or a donation to a specific growth fund of the country. So it's not that you're randomly bringing in money to the country and try to start businesses or invest in local businesses. No, it's very designated investment channels that are built out by the government structure that is Citizenship by Investment Unit, for example, or the Citizenship Department, etc. So it's a very much bureaucratic process that we're going through. It's just new and interesting because it's a pay-to-play citizenship.
Gotcha. And you, I believe, are a pretty big advocate for something called jurisdictional arbitrage. Now, for people who have no idea what that means, can you explain that to us and how it works, and more, maybe most importantly, why it matters?
Yeah, absolutely. So different countries come with different policies, and you can pick and choose of how to navigate this game of jurisdictional arbitrage for your benefit. You probably heard how even in 90s there were offshore banking, right? And like that sounds like something from the absolutely insane wealthy millionaire playbook that is not welcoming us true plebs. Well, in reality, it's just an asset protection mechanism that is built in the Caribbean islands. St. Kitts is one of the leaders of this asset protection mechanism. And yes, 30 years ago, it was maybe unreachable for most. It was like truly a top 1%. Well, now it is very widespread. Of course, now we know that the best asset protection mechanism is SHA-256, the 12 words in your head that keep your money safe. But there are other things that you want to play the game of jurisdictional arbitrage for. For example, there is no corporate tax on tech companies in El Salvador right now. So why wouldn't you incorporate your tech company in a jurisdiction that is welcoming businesses and saying for next 10 years you're not going to pay any corporate tax if you're building tech company in El Salvador. So you're going to, of course, get on this train and play the game of jurisdictional arbitrage by incorporating where it suits you. And then the same goes for tax regime. You might want to become a non-tax resident of Canada and claim your tax residency elsewhere, relocate yourself. You might want to get a bug out home in a jurisdiction that is clearly not going to be involved in the World War III. Yeah, you just want to, sit on a beach and eat popcorn while this entire shit show unfolds in the world. So all these things are something to consider. There's probably a jurisdiction that will suit you better than your current country in this particular little aspects of your life.
And how realistic do you think it is, Katie, that Bitcoiners will eventually need to physically move jurisdictions to protect their assets? Are we maybe even already there?
I would say it's too late when you need it. It's better to be a few years early than one day too late. And that's what I'm seeing with non-clientele. It's like most of my audience were pretty bullish on this election after Trump came into office. They knew that it's a better administration for Bitcoin, for economic freedom of the country, and for property rights specifically. And yet, they don't want to wait around and see how it unfolds. They want to make sure they have this hedge, a plan B in place in case they need it. So I do see a lot of Bitcoiners who've already relocated because now they don't have to be necessarily in a place where opportunities are. Like COVID was a huge accelerator of that, right? We realized that
Right.
we can make money in US dollars working for a US company, earning American salary, while living in Mexico or Costa Rica for 20% of the price and living a really nice lifestyle, the one that we can't afford in New York. So that's also a game of jurisdictional arbitrage. And with Bitcoin being the borderless money, I do see Bitcoiners relocate simply because they want a different lifestyle. They don't want city life. They want surfing. They want volcanoes. They want mountains. They want snowboarding every day. And they want it at better price, not with what inflation got us to in the US.
Yeah, and I can't help but feel like Americans kind of underestimate how quickly our financial freedom can be revoked, especially like we live in a bit of a bubble here, I think, compared to a lot of other nations in the world. Do you feel like that's true? And is it something we're just not going to care about until it's too late? Kind of like what you were just saying a second ago, like people don't realize this stuff until they need it. Is that, you think, kind of what's
Yes,
going on here in
I'm
the United
definitely
States?
seeing it. In America, you guys you had it good for a very long time. So getting complacent is understandable. You have not experienced this insane level of crisis and government overreach in a way that I have or some other countries have. Like being born and raised in a post-communist country definitely gives you this antibodies to socialism and communism agenda. Um, but being born in a country that had a somewhat stable currency for the last, I mean, many years, for a century, that kind of gets you complacent for sure.
Yeah, and I want to talk, kind of switch gears a little bit. We mentioned El Salvador a minute ago, and they have something there called the Freedom Visa. What do you think about that? Is that a marketing stunt? Is that a blueprint for the future? Would you recommend it to your clients?
Honestly, out of the 19 nations that are offering the citizenship by investment right now, that is my absolutely top choice. Like if I'm unlimited in the finances and I truly want the best passport, that would be my top choice. I would be choosing between El Salvador and Serbia contribution program probably, although Serbia is a little closer to the geopolitical crisis between Russia and Ukraine right now, so that might have been turned me towards El Salvador more. I think, I mean, first of all, it's the only Bitcoin native program. They literally don't even take fiat. They only take Bitcoin or USDT, which is mind-blowing to me. They're the only program in the entire world offering it. They're also the fastest citizenship by investment program, meaning that Caribbean islands will get you through processing in about a year. El Salvador, you can have a passport in your hand in less than 2 months. So it's a
Oh,
digitally
wow.
native Bitcoin native program. Everything is done remotely. You just have to come and pick up the passport. There is a very solid AML due diligence involved that is as thorough as Malta or, let's say, Caribbean islands, but they just get it done in a startup way, which is efficient, and get it done in under 2 months.
Okay, so El Salvador is the place to go for that Freedom Visa. Okay, all right. So, Kate, we've had you on the show for a minute. I got one more question for you because I know you got a busy day. It's Monday, and we can't take up all your time. But our final question to kind of wrap things up this morning. If Bitcoin succeeds in reshaping the global financial system, what role do passports and citizenship play in that future? And do you think we're headed toward a new form of sovereign individualism?
Yes, definitely. Again, Sovereign Individual book describes it really well. I may not be fully on board with the way they see it unfold. Mine might be a little different, but basically, I do see how we move away from the globalization movement. We move away from a giant nation state service providers towards a micro states where you genuinely contribute, you buy your subscription to citizenship and nationality. You pick and choose just like you choose your Netflix provider versus Hulu, AT&T versus T-Mobile. You decide which jurisdiction suits your needs better, provides you with the policies that suits your lifestyle, suits your business needs, suits your family needs, and then you pick and choose. Now that's like kind of a hopium, and that's very far down the road. I'm not saying that's gonna unfold in the next 10 years. But I also don't know if hyperbitcoinization is gonna happen in the next 10 years. I do believe that having the borderless money truly accelerates this process of the end of nation states, because having the economic bubble, economic borders is what truly holds the sovereignty of the state quite a bit. I mean, monopoly on violence would be one, but the economic bubble of it as well. So borderless money will accelerate the end of nation states, and will incentivize smaller nation states to come out with economically beneficial policies that will attract citizens, will bring money to the nations. And that's what I'm here for.
Well, we certainly appreciate all your expertise and insight on this world of global passports and all of that amazing stuff, Katie. Before we let you go today, I'm sure our audience is wondering, hey, where can we learn more about Katie, the Russian? Where can we learn more about Plan B Passport and Citizen X? What's the best place for me to send them?
I mean, my Twitter is definitely one of the best places to stay up to date with all the news. It's Plan B Passport is my handle. Mostly we're serving our clients through citizenx.com now that the acquisition took place. You are actually able to see the precise breakdown for your family. You can go ahead to our website and see all the programs we currently offer. You can schedule a free consultation call where together we're going to brainstorm on what is the best jurisdiction for you and your family. And right from there, we can execute it through an end-to-end encrypted citizenship portal.
Amazing, Katie. Well, thank you so much for joining us in the Blockchain Report this morning. Your time and expertise are greatly appreciated, and it was a real pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much, Hank. Great energy. I love the show. Thank you.
Pleasure is all mine. Enjoy the rest of your week. And when we're back, we got more bull run coming up, top stories of the day. We're going to revisit the markets and our market rundown, all that and much more on today's show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, well, that was fun, guys. Katie the Russian. Make sure to check her out on X for all the most up-to-date info on how to get your next passport. She was great, and we appreciate her coming on. Right now, we're going back to the market rundown, and let's see how Bitcoin is doing now. Currently, it is 9:09 a.m. on this Monday morning. Bitcoin is hovering right around that $107,500 mark. We've seen a little bit of an uptick this morning, but we're still down a little less than 1% in the last 24 hours. Not a lot to talk about there. Ethereum still hovering beneath that $2,500 level. We've seen a little pop up this morning as well. We were in the low 24s. Now we're getting up there right around 2,500. XRP sitting just beneath 220 a coin. Cardano down about 2% in the last 24, sitting at around 56, 57 cents. And of course, Dogecoin doing a whole lot of nothing, down about 3.5%, 3% in the last 24 hours. So let's move over to camera one. Let's continue this morning's bull run. Let's get to it. All right, now for anyone wondering why Bitcoin is still hovering below 110K while ETFs are swallowing billions and corporate adoption is going parabolic, the answer, well, it isn't always technical analysis. Sometimes it's emotional damage. According to Capriole Investments founder Charles Edwards, long-term holders, the OGs, the diamond hands of the space, the apostles of HODL, have been offloading their bags directly onto Wall Street's lap since the ETFs launched back in January of 2024. The second the TradFi crowd showed up with their shiny new tickers and custodied coins, the Bitcoin veterans started quietly hitting the eject button. As Edwards put it, they've been dumping on Wall Street and unloading their positions, which is a polite way of saying, thanks for the liquidity, fam. We're out. He backed this up with data showing a surge in 6-month holders, a cohort largely made up of the new wave of Bitcoin treasury companies who've been soaking up every cent the OGs have dropped like they're on a Satoshi scavenger hunt. In fact, Edwards says the amount of BTC bought in just the last 2 months by these new holders has completely absorbed all of the Bitcoin sold by the long-term holders over the past year and a half. Or in other words, the new kids, they're not flinching. They're stacking everything the old guard is dumping and calling it strategy. Edwards predicts this will soon evolve into a full-blown Bitcoin treasury flywheel. Corporate buyers will pile in, copycats will follow, and the ETF narrative will move to the backseat like a forgotten altcoin bag. And it's already happening. Just last week, we saw Cardone Capital get in on the action. Anthony Pompliano's ProCap announced plans to go public. Panther Metals, a literal mineral exploration firm, joined in on the party. Even a Norwegian deep-sea mining company added Bitcoin to its books. So now we've got cafe chains, venture bros, land drillers, and ocean diggers all united around one core belief, and that's that owning Bitcoin is a better long-term plan than whatever the hell they were doing before. Meanwhile, short-term traders are skimming profits ahead of July 9th tariff deadline, hedging against whatever unpredictable geopolitical roller coaster comes next. For now, Bitcoin is stuck bouncing between 102K and 110, a tight range that's lasted since early May and has traders asking if someone accidentally turned the volatility off. Despite that, spot Bitcoin ETFs in the United States have raked in over $3.2 billion in net inflows over just the past 2 weeks, without a single day of outflows. So that's right, billions flowing in, not $1 flowing out. And while the price hasn't moved much, new treasury companies continue to enter the market every week like it's some kind of slow motion corporate stampede. Bitcoin briefly tapped 108K last week, its highest in nearly 2 weeks, and then immediately failed to break resistance because apparently that is the new tradition here. So here we are now. Wall Street's buying, the OGs are dumping, and corporations are hoarding, and the charts, they're yawning. And Bitcoin, the world's most volatile asset, is currently behaving like it's been sedated and sent to a corporate retreat. We'll see what moves first, the price or patience. And in other news, Michael Saylor, oh Lord, Saylor, there he is. He's the executive chairman, of course, of Strategy, or MicroStrategy, or whatever. I say strategy if you're feeling minimalist. Well, he's once again doing what he does best, and that's preaching the Bitcoin gospel and buying more of it like it's oxygen during a fire. At the White House Digital Assets Summit, Saylor, well, he didn't mince words. He said Bitcoin is the foundation of the entire crypto economy, not a foundation, the foundation. He wants the United States government to officially treat it like one, specifically by integrating it into the National Reserve strategy. He claims if the government gets serious, clarifies regulation, starts stacking sats, and stops acting like this is a passing fad, it could unlock $100 trillion in U.S. economic value over the next decade. His words, though, not mine. To Saylor, Bitcoin isn't just a financial tool, it is a freedom engine. A censorship-resistant, decentralized way for people, especially those in authoritarian regimes, to control their own financial lives. And unlike most executives, Saylor's not content with PowerPoints and platitudes. He backs it up with a $63.6 billion Bitcoin treasury, as Strategy now holds over 592,000 BTC, more than double the next 20 public Bitcoin holding companies combined. And that number, my friends, is already outdated, as just last week, Strategy added another 4,980 BTC to the pile, which is worth a tidy $531 million, as Bitcoin surged back above 107K, and that brings their total stash to now over 597,000 BTC, acquired for about $42 billion at an average price just underneath $71,000 per coin. The average purchase price of their latest buy, though, around $107,000 per coin, and a little bit more. And in case you were wondering, they're on pace to hit their 25% year-to-date Bitcoin yield target, already sitting at 19.7% this year. Quarter-to-date yield, 7.8%, which is up 0.4%. Meanwhile, blockchain sleuths also spotted nearly 7,300 Bitcoin, roughly $800 million worth, moving to 3 new wallets on Sunday, likely for improved custody. Strategy hasn't sold a single coin since 2022 when they offloaded 704 BTC, then panic bought 810 2 days later. Diamond hands, but make it spreadsheet confirmed. Now Strategy is in week 11 of consecutive Bitcoin buys, a streak that started April 14th, and their latest haul, 245 Bitcoin right before this most recent purchase. So now they've got almost 600,000 BTC in total. And Saylor's not exactly keeping it low key. He told his nearly 4.5 million followers on X that in 21 years, you'll wish you'd bought more. And judging by the million followers he's added this year alone, a decent number of people might actually agree. He's calling for Bitcoin to hit 13 million per coin by 2045. That's based on the idea that 7% of global wealth flows into Bitcoin. And if that sounds insane to you, remember, Saylor's already made it this far betting against conventional wisdom. At BTC Prague, Saylor took it a step further. He called Bitcoin a monetary virus, and not in the we need a vaccine kind of way, thank God. He said corporations are the super spreaders, and he explained how even a humble dentist could start a Bitcoin treasury company. You start small, accumulate a few $100,000 in BTC, go public, issue securities, raise millions, buy more. He said the real long-term business is issuing BTC-backed credit instruments. Billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions. He unveiled internal metrics like BTC gain, BTC yield, rating, credit, risk, and teased new strategy credit instruments, STRK and STRF. And then, the kicker to all this, there is no second best. As according to Saylor, crypto exchanges may not survive the shift to peer-to-peer Bitcoin trading, and in 5 years, the status quo might be totally unrecognizable. Meanwhile, Strategy keeps on stacking. Investor Jeff Walton predicts they have a 91% chance of joining the S&P 500 this quarter. So if the death spiral's coming for anyone, it's probably not Michael Saylor. And Metaplanet's back, Japan's most aggressive Bitcoin accumulator, and apparently new Michael Saylor understudy, as they've officially leapfrogged CleanSpark to become the 5th largest corporate Bitcoin holder in the world. The company bought another 1,005 BTC for $108 million, bringing their grand total to 13,350 BTC. The cost basis for all this, roughly $1.31 billion, currently valued at $1.45 billion. So yeah, they're not only stacking sats, they're printing gains. And with this move, they've passed Tesla, Hut 8, Coinbase, and Block, and now trail only Strategy, Marathon Digital, 21 Capital, and Riot. So sorry, Elon, you've been bumped by a Tokyo-based Bitcoin zealot with no electric cars, just pure conviction and industrial appetite for digital scarcity. Metaplanet's CEO Simon Garovich said their most recent purchase came in at an average price of $107,600 per coin, and that their BTC yield for the year is sitting at a spicy 349%. And that's no typo. I said 349%. And they're not doing it with vibes and angel investors either. They're doing it with bonds, baby. Metaplanet issued 30 billion yen, about $208 million, in 0% interest bonds from its EVO fund to finance more Bitcoin buys. So yeah, they basically gave themselves a no-interest credit card and went full-on degen. Now, to make it even cleaner, they used part of that issuance to buy back and cancel $12 million worth of older bonds that carried a 0.36% annual rate. So they're lowering the debt costs, rolling everything into Bitcoin, and making CFOs at other public companies look like interns on a coffee break. The remainder of the bond issuance, well, all going toward more Bitcoin, of course. And that, the market, well, they are kind of loving it. Metaplanet's stock jumped 9% today and has surged more than 350% since the start of 2025, which ain't too bad for a company that used to be a mid-tier investment firm and now casually drops 9-figure Bitcoin buys like it's ordering takeout. But there is more to this story. Earlier this month, they revised their Bitcoin accumulation target from 21,000 BTC to 100,000 by 2026. And now they say they're aiming for 210 Bitcoin by the end of 2027. That would make them the second largest corporate holder on the planet, right behind Saylor's strategy. If the rest of the field doesn't wake up and join the party first, of course. Speaking of Saylor, though, he's still out here doing his weekend portfolio posts like a dad showing off barbecue photos on Facebook, saying again, in 21 years, you'll wish you bought more, because subtlety, as Michael Saylor says, is for cowards. Metaplanet's Garovich replied, "We buy every day, and still, I know I'll look back wishing we had moved even faster." It's basically the Bitcoin version of a dad joke duel, except instead of grill marks and fishing trips, they're flexing billion-dollar treasury plays and moving markets before Monday morning coffee. And while Elon Musk has been busy naming children after algebra equations and trying to turn X into a bank, his companies have quietly become some of the largest Bitcoin holders on Earth. According to new data from Arkham Intelligence, Tesla and SpaceX now own over $2 billion worth of Bitcoin combined. That's right. Two of Musk's companies are sitting on a Bitcoin pile that would buy half of the internet back in 1999. Arkham's blockchain analytics platform linked specific wallets to both companies and estimates that the average buy-in price was around $32K. With Bitcoin trading well above that level, they're currently up over $1.5 billion, which isn't too bad for a guy who once said Dogecoin might be the future of currency while tweeting memes of dogs on the moon. Tesla's investment has been public since early 2021, when the company dropped a $1.5 billion into Bitcoin and briefly accepted Bitcoin payments for cars, until Musk remembered that, the planet exists. SpaceX, on the other hand, kept its Bitcoin stash a little more covert, until Arkham tracked down the wallets and dropped receipts. Now, the key takeaway from all this is that Musk didn't try to swing trade his way to glory. No. Tesla and SpaceX, they held. And then they held, and then they held some more. And now they are deep in profit, highlighting exactly how long-term exposure to Bitcoin rewards patience. Now, knowing that Musk's companies are sitting on fat, unrealized gains creates a psychological floor in the market. It tells people Bitcoin at 30K isn't scary. It's where the smart money got in. These Bitcoin reserves also give Tesla and SpaceX options. Unlike traditional cash or short-term treasuries, Bitcoin on the balance sheet can unlock crypto-backed financing or strategic hedging, which means that Musk can now raise capital by doing more than selling flamethrowers on the internet. Those were awesome, though. Arkham's discovery also raises a new question. If SpaceX's Bitcoin stash flew under the radar this long, how many other major firms are holding bags that we don't even know about? It's the iceberg theory of corporate crypto. You only see the tip until it hits your hull. And while Musk has been relatively quiet on Bitcoin lately, his balance sheets are doing all the talking for him. This also puts him in similar company to Michael Saylor, whose strategy firm has made 21 BTC buys just this year, with 20 of them already in profit. Saylor talks about it, Musk doesn't, but they're both doing the same thing here. And that's buying Bitcoin, holding it, and letting the numbers do the flexing. And a new report from VC firm Breed says most Bitcoin treasury companies are circling the drain. And not slowly, not gently, we're talking death spiral here. Here's how it works, okay? Step 1, Bitcoin's price drops. Step 2, companies' market caps fall close to its net asset value or NAV. Step 3, raising capital gets harder. Step 4, debt comes due margin calls hit. Step 5, they sell Bitcoin to cover the losses. 6, that selling pressure pushes Bitcoin's price down even more. Step 7, consolidation phase. The strong devour the weak. It's crypto capitalism at its most savage. And the report says only a select few will survive. Those that maintain a lasting premium to their NAV, called MNAV, through strong leadership, disciplined execution, savvy marketing, and a Bitcoin per share strategy that keeps growing even when the market doesn't. Now, the big fear here is that if these firms collapse at scale, they could trigger the next big bear market. The slight silver lining in all of this, however, is that most of them are still using equity financing and not debt. That means that the fallout could be contained. But if debt-based buying starts to dominate, this entire sector could implode faster than a Solana NFT project. It is worth remembering, though, that Sailor's strategy created this playbook, and they've been stacking, there he is, they've been stacking since 2020, and they've already survived a bear market. But for the smaller players trying to ride his coattails with leverage and vibes, this could end up being a bloodbath, but we'll see. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, we're going to join us some Blockchain Without Borders. Let's figure out what the heck is happening in Kazakhstan, and I've got some news for you. It's good news. We'll be right back. More on that coming up. All right, we're back with a little Blockchain Without Borders. Let's find out what's going on in other parts of the world. First up, we're talking about Kazakhstan. The country best known for Borat, uranium, and brutal winters is now trying to add crypto superpower to its resume. The government has announced plans to create a state crypto reserve because apparently every country wants to be Michael Saylor now, even the ones that still run on coal. According to National Bank Chairman Timur Suleimanov, they're working on a formal plan to build and manage this reserve, likely through some bank-adjacent entity focused. As we go, please just stop asking us questions. As for how they'll fund it, well, here's where it gets a little spicy. Suleimanov said that they'll use confiscated crypto assets and coins mined by a partially state-owned mining operation. So yeah, the reserve will be backed by Bitcoin that they either stole or mined in bulk. A true proof-of-scheme treasury strategy if there ever was one. International practice shows, he began, which is always how you know something's about to get weird, that the sources for such a reserve may include confiscated crypto assets as well as cryptocurrencies mined by a crypto miner partially owned by the government. Very nice. How much a Bitcoin? I don't do a good Borat. Now, before this beautiful blockchain dream can actually happen, they'll need to completely rewrite their laws because Kazakhstan currently has no legal framework for storing, managing, or even acknowledging Bitcoin exists, unless, of course, it's being confiscated. But hey, they're working on it. Suleimanov said that the National Bank is open to working with Parliament to define the legal status of the reserve and figure out how to use the assets properly, which we assume means not to rug pull your own citizens. Melee. Now this comes on the heels of a broader crypto regulatory push in Kazakhstan, which is somewhere between tightening controls and full-blown crackdown with PowerPoint slides. They've already banned crypto transactions from unlicensed providers, and banks now receive a quarterly list of companies they're supposed to block like it's the TSA's no-fly list, except this one is for JPEGs and off-ramp services. In Q1 alone, banks blocked over 15,800 transactions worth over $3 million, and Kazakhstan is now shadow banning altcoins with more intensity than Instagram shadow bans crypto influencers who use the eggplant emoji. They've also announced new restrictions on crypto advertising, especially targeting influencers and pseudo business coaches promising 10x gains from a meme coin while standing next to a rented McLaren and misquoting Naval. Meanwhile, in a bizarre subplot, Solana has entered the chat as the Solana Foundation signed an agreement with the Kazakhstan's Ministry of Digital Development to promote crypto education, support startups, and apparently teach staking, assuming the network stays online long enough for them to finish the lesson. So to recap, Kazakhstan is building a national crypto reserve. They're funding it with seized coins and state-mined sats. They're rewriting the laws as they go, and they're collaborating with Solana like it's a real blockchain and not just a dev environment with delusions of uptime. Will it work? No idea. But if Kazakhstan ends up with a bigger Bitcoin bag than most US states by the end of the year, you'll know why I'm doing this entire segment tomorrow in a gray suit and mustache. Very nice. Much regulation equal much success. In other news, we have, what is it here? We go Bolivia. Well, their economy is in full meltdown mode right now, don't you know? So naturally, small businesses have turned to the one thing more stable than their national currency, Tether. Now, according to Reuters, Restaurants, salons, and mom and pop shops across Bolivia are now accepting crypto because the Boliviano is losing value faster than a celebrity NFT after a breakup. Crypto usage in Bolivia is up 530% in the first half of 2025 compared to last year. And no, that is not a typo. That's not inflation math. This is very real math, okay? The country went from 46.5 million in crypto transactions to 294 million, which is what happens when your central bank runs out of dollars and your national currency turns into monopoly money with worse art. Bolivia's black market exchange rate is so bad, even gas station scratch-offs are outperforming the Boliviano. Now, the central bank has $0 reserves. Fuel shortages are everywhere, and inflation is so out of control that locals are treating Bitcoin like a safe, conservative asset. Just let that sink in for a second. Former central bank chief Jose Gabriel Espinoza estimates that Bolivians are now transacting $600,000 a day in USDT because when your country's currency is losing half its value, even Tether starts to feel like Berkshire Hathaway. Now, to be clear, Tether is the stable option here, and that's where we are now. Okay, and Bolivia is not alone in the Please Save Us Satoshi Club. They're joining the likes of Turkey, Lebanon, and Argentina on the global leaderboard of fiat failures turned crypto onboarding funnels. In Turkey, inflation got so bad in 2023 that people started using stablecoins to buy groceries, which is honestly more functional than most government-backed currencies, let's be real. And Lebanon's financial system collapsed so hard that it made FTX look like a stable enterprise. And Argentina hit triple-digit inflation and racked up $85.4 billion in crypto activity in a single year, which is what happens when your central bank spends more time printing money than figuring out how to stop printing money. So what's Bolivia's crypto strategy exactly? Well, survive. They're not buying Bitcoin to speculate. They're buying it to not go broke by Tuesday. And now, corner stores and La Paz are basically operating like decentralized finance hubs, but with empanadas. And crypto adoption is no longer about tech. It's about desperation and receipts. You see, when salons are taking USDT and barbers are quoting you in sats, you know we've hit the point where the people have stopped waiting for policy fixes and just opened a wallet instead. Now, Bolivia didn't get into crypto. They were economically bullied into it. And now they're onboarding faster than half of Silicon Valley. And at this rate, the next big layer 2 isn't coming from a San Francisco hackathon. It's coming from a Bolivian bakery that learned to accept lightning payments out of sheer necessity. Well, fiat's dead and crypto's the life raft. In Bolivia, well, they're already swimming. And in other news, Venati Coffee, which is a tiny cafe chain in Spain with 6 locations, rising losses, and apparently zero chill, has approved a plan to invest up to €1 billion in crypto, specifically Bitcoin. $1 billion with a B, as in, bro, are you serious? That's so much. The decision was approved by shareholders and makes Venati the boldest espresso-fueled Bitcoin pivot in recorded history and Spain's most aggressively leveraged latte purveyor. The company has already bought 54 Bitcoin worth about just under €6 million, which feels like the financial equivalent of trying to shotgun a Red Bull and chase it with ayahuasca. They filed the plan with BME Growth, Spain's version of TechCrunch, but for slightly overconfident small companies, and stated their ambition to become the largest business holder of Bitcoin in all of Spain, which is a weird flex for a company that, until recently, was losing €3.3 million a year selling croissants and iced Americanos. Now, since the Bitcoin announcement, Venati's stock price has gone full Dogecoin, tripling in just June alone, because retail investors love nothing more than caffeine and absolute chaos. In their translated press release, Venati wrote, "Similar to companies such as Strategy or Metaplanet, Venati Coffee redefines its business model and will use Bitcoin as its main reserve asset and accumulate large amounts of Bitcoin as part of its treasury." Or in other words, we saw Michael Saylor do it, and gosh darn it, we like it. They're essentially trying to replicate Strategy, which holds nearly 600,000 BTC and has a former rocket scientist as its CEO, while they're over here still trying to figure out how to upsell almond milk. Now, to be fair, the traditional coffee business wasn't exactly working. They posted a loss, like I said earlier, of about 3.3 million euro in 2024 alone, which is up nearly 16% from the year before, and not in a growth company kind of way, more in a we're hemorrhaging faster than a Terra Luna investor kind of way. Now, in May, they went looking for money. One offer came from a local one-man software consultancy in Alicante, offering 50 million euro, which is like asking your cousin who once built a Squarespace site to bankroll your IPO. The other was from Alpha Blue Ocean, an international firm pledging $1.5 billion to support 15 companies across 15 countries. And apparently, Venati made the cut, possibly after proving they had access to a Ledger wallet. Of course, critics are already circling like seagulls near a beachside cafe. Analysts are raising red flags about the company's size, lack of experience, razor-thin margins, and their newfound role as a high-volatility crypto hedge fund that happens to also sell muffins. Spain's regulatory climate isn't exactly crypto enthusiast-friendly either. And a screw-up here could get very expensive very fast. Unlike Strategy, whose leadership team actually understands balance sheets, Bitcoin yield models, and words like liquidity, Venati's team is staring at a crash course in risk management, with the side of churros. Still, they're not totally alone. Bakkt recently announced plans to buy up $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Tesla did it. Coinbase obviously has it. Even SpaceX is stacked. But none of those companies make macchiatos on folding chairs in Alicante. And that's what makes Venati iconic. You see, this is a 1 billion euro Bitcoin bet by a cafe chain with 6 stores, 3 million euro in losses, and the raw ambition of a meme stock on bath salts. But will it work? Who knows? But if they pull this off, they'll be the most valuable cafe chain in the world, not named Starbucks. And if they don't, well, they still got their Bitcoin, and probably a killer espresso too. And last, we have Turkey. One of the most crypto-obsessed countries in the entire world has finally decided that if you can't beat crypto, you should at least make it wear a financial ankle monitor. You see, on June 28th, Turkey's Financial Crime Investigation Board, aka MASAK, or M-A-S-A-K, because of course it has an acronym that sounds like a villain's private militia, dropped a regulatory nuke on the digital asset sector, introducing waiting periods, transfer limits, mandatory ID checks, and enough AML procedures to make TradFi blush. Now, the new rules were published in the official Gazette, which is like the government burn book with legal powder, and fall under law number 5549, which sounds less like finance policy and more like something you'd be charged with after hacking an airport Wi-Fi. So what is in the fine print of this thing? Let's unpack the new general communique number 29, which sounds like it should be announced over a dystopian intercom system or something. Communique 59, you got it. Now, all crypto transfers now have to wait 48 hours, okay? And if it's your first time withdrawing from a crypto storage account, buckle up for 72 hours of reflection time, we'll call it. You see, every transaction must include verified user IDs, and a minimum 20-character description is also required. So no more sending $30 in Dogecoin to your friend labeled pizza. Now it has to say something like payment for pizza. Definitely not drugs or terrorism, I swear. Now, there's a $3,000 cap on transfers between platforms and a $50,000 daily limit overall. And if you're thinking of skirting the rules with market making or arbitrage, you're going to need approval from the platform's board of directors, because nothing says fast-paced crypto innovation quite like asking permission from finance departments first. Now, as for platforms, they're required to develop full anti-money laundering policies, hire independent auditors, set up internal risk controls, and report suspicious activity, which in crypto is basically every Tuesday before lunch. Non-compliant VASPs will get absolutely nuked, and any abused exemptions will be revoked faster than an influencer's Binance sponsorship. So why is Turkey suddenly going full compliance czar on a market it once openly embraced? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. We're talking rising fraud, rampant scams, and regulators tired of watching Telegram groups run the country's monetary policy. Now, Masak says that the crackdown is about boosting transparency and investor confidence, which loosely translates to you degenerates had your fun and now we're taking over. Now, to be fair, Turkey's trying to align with international anti-money laundering standards, and their framework isn't that different from what European Union's doing with MiCA, except that Turkey skipped the whole PR tour and jumped straight into martial law for meme coins. So how is the market reacting to all of this, you ask? Well, on one hand, it could push some users to unregulated or offshore platforms because nothing makes people trust a system like mandatory 72-hour delays on their own money. But the government insists it still wants a space for legitimate crypto asset activities, which is basically the Turkish way of saying, we're not banning crypto, we're just making it extremely annoying. Now, at the same time, they're hoping this crackdown brings in larger, fully compliant firms who don't mind all of the red tape, because nothing says welcome to the future quite like a $3,000 fund transfer cap and an audit requirement for sending your ETH. Now, in the end, this marks a pretty big shift for one of the world's largest crypto markets, a place where adoption was grassroots, explosive, and often way ahead of the regulators. But now, it's being brought to the heel with spreadsheets, penalties, and Communique number 29. Now, the bull market may be global, but Turkey just reminded us that regulators are still watching, and they finally figured out how to use Google Translate. We're taking a quick break. When we're back, market rundown, bullish, bearish, a lot more coming up. Stay tuned. We'll see you in just a sec. All right, we're back with a quick market rundown recap. I wanted to point out a big mover this morning. Right now, if you take a peek, we got MicroStrategy up nearly $19 a share right now, or right around 5%, but you're asking why is that? Well, I believe today is the big day we've been waiting for. If Bitcoin holds above that 90K mark, I do believe that MicroStrategy will officially be able to enter the S&P 500, which could account for the large upswing we've seen in MicroStrategy stock this morning. They finally eclipsed $400 a share. So yeah, up almost 5% this morning. Exciting news for MicroStrategy. I'm sure Michael Saylor is swimming in a pond of money doing his Scrooge McDuck thing right now, because why wouldn't he? It's certainly a time for them to celebrate. So it's right. He's so happy. All right, we're going to wrap up today's show with a little bullish, bearish, or BS. Let's head over to camera one and do it. Let's go. We can go eventually. There we go. All right, well, it's the part of the show where we go over all of our top stories again and see if today's looking good, bad, or otherwise for Orange Coin. Let's recap. First, Bitcoin has been bouncing between 102 and 110K for nearly 2 months, despite billions in ETF inflows and a flood of new corporate buyers. But why? Well, because OG Bitcoin holders are unloading their bags onto Wall Street's eager lap like it's a flea market clearance bin. I am bullish on this, gang. I mean, yeah, the price has been a little flat, but ETF demand is relentless, and corporate buyers keep piling on in. This isn't a top, it's a coiled spring, my friend. Short term, the news is a little boring, but long term, this is just more rocket fuel for that fire, baby. I'm bullish. Next up, we have Senate Republicans are pushing a mega tax and spending package with a hidden crypto twist, a possible merger of the Genius and Clarity Acts. Now, this could finally give the U.S. a unified crypto regulatory framework, assuming, of course, that Congress doesn't fumble it like a hot dog at a ball game. I'm bullish on this. I mean, clear rules bring institutional money, baby. Chaos tends to scare it away, and if this passes, the floodgates might actually be open. It seems like the government is actually doing something useful for once, so we're bullish on that. Next up, we have Michael Saylor added another $531 million in Bitcoin to Strategy's balance sheet and dropped a casual prediction of $13 million per coin by 2045. He also wants Bitcoin to become part of the U.S. strategic reserves and is designing a Bitcoin-backed credit products like a Bitcoin-powered Goldman Sachs. Ooh, I'm bullish on this. It's Michael Saylor, and he isn't just bullish. He's foaming at the mouth, eyes glowing, endgame mode bullish, and he's putting money where his memes are, baby. I think he might, in fact, be Satoshi, or Satoshi is his spirit animal, I should say, and I couldn't be more bullish on that. 3 bullish to start. We're running in hot. Next up, Metaplanet. They added another 1,000 BTC to their bags, bringing their total stash to over 13,000 and pushing past Tesla and Coinbase. Now they're issuing 0% bonds to buy more and aiming for 210 BTC by 2027. I mean, my verdict on this, of course it's bullish. They're printing yen and they're turning it into Bitcoin and outstacking Tesla. This is the corporate FOMO flywheel in action, my friends. Metaplanet is now Tokyo Sailor as far as I'm concerned, and I'm bullish. 4 bullish to start. Can we get the clean sweep? Last up, we have Breed VC. Says that most treasury firms are 1 margin call away from the abyss. If price drops, their debt totally unwinds, and we get a liquidation death spiral. Only disciplined firms with actual strategy will survive all of this. Ooh, I want to go bearish on this, but I'm going to say this is BS, and here's why. Many will fail at this, but that's how the markets work, right? Bitcoin doesn't care. It survives the carnage and it eats the weak. This is capitalism, but with extra volatility, my friends. So I'm BS on that. So today's verdict, 4 bullish, 0 bearish, and 1 BS, which means today is distinctly bullish. I mean, price might be sideways, my money gun might not work, but the players are stacking, the institutions are circling, and the government might actually pull its head out of its own freaking ass for once. Thank you, as always, for watching today's episode of the Blockchain Report. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV and me at RoxomTV on all platforms in the world. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and make sure to stay put for Market Radar with Zunaid. It's coming up next. We'll see you tomorrow, baby. Woo!